As journalists and television hosts, scripts are a lifeline. Each newscast, each story, it all revolves around a script.
But now it's time to go unscripted. That means we're not just going off script, we're throwing out the script altogether.
Each week, we're joined by fellow Farm Journal hosts and editors to peel back the layers on stories we've shared throughout the week.
Unscripted. It's real, it's raw, it's entertaining, and it's your chance to meet the personalities behind the personalities. I'm Tyne Morgan.
And I'm Clinton Griffiths. Welcome to Unscripted.
Making our debut. I'm Tyne Morgan, one of your hosts of Unscripted.
And I'm Clinton Griffiths, one of your other hosts of Unscripted. So happy to be here. Thank you for joining us on this, I guess we're going to call it inaugural episode of Unscripted, Tyne.
Yeah, and you know what? We're bringing out the heavy hitter.
Absolutely.
To kick things off. I mean, how can we talk about going unscripted without having Jim Wiesemeyer, who lives his life unscripted? And so, Jim Wiesemeyer, you really need no introduction, but without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, where's the red carpet if this is premiere? I'm a Devo. I'm a Devo.
We're aware.
Jim,
it's in the mail.
Jim, when you're not around, I do call you Jimmy Dubs. Just so you know, Jimmy Dubs was on with us, so I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, to bridge your unscripted, I give a lot of speeches, as most of the audience would know, and I'm asked sometimes, can they have the speech itself in print format? And I laugh. I go, no, it's unscripted. I feed off the audience.
And I know probably many of you watching have seen Jim Wiesemeyer in action. I describe it as going to the barber shop or the salon to get your hair done. You get all of the gossip. But usually with Jim, there's a little bit more alcohol involved. So that's kind of how I describe being around Jim Wiesemeyer. And so today for Unscripted, as we kick things off, Jim, how long have you been in this business?
April Fool's Day, literally. 1971.
Wow.
I don't think I even knew that.
53 years. This is my 53rd year in covering the business of agriculture. All great men are dead, and I don't feel well myself.
Jim, I'm going to ask the obvious question here. Why do you keep doing this? Why have you not retired? And I'm so thankful you haven't, but after 51 years.
My doctor asked me that about 10 days ago, and I said, because I still really enjoy it. He said, that's the answer I wanted to hear.
That's a good answer. I mean, that's a solid answer. Jim, I know Tyne and I were talking before we started. Has Washington changed much since you started doing this?
Dramatically. It used to be a civil town, believe it or not, between both political parties. And I think part of the problem is they have too much funding to go back to their states and districts, where before they had to stay in town and they became bridge partners or went out to each other's houses. And the other side is our country is 50-50 or closest to 50-50. And when the minority party thinks they can come back into power the next election, they're not going to give. So we need to see a true minority party to get us back to civility.
Jim, you have a lot of sources, and sources that you won't even reveal to us who your sources are. And that's what makes your coverage and what you do so valuable. But even when your sources over the years, how has that changed? Like, how do you get some of this inside information in Washington when even with things like the Farm Bill this year, I feel like they have been so tight-lipped about things before last week?
It has been one of the tightest ones. We've had 19 farm bills, by the way, in our great country's history. I will have covered 11 of them. I will tell you that my goal is to learn to become friends with the new congressional aides, because they really do most of the work, believe it or not. And most of them are fresh right out of college and the smartest people too. So I have various other friends who are a little bit younger than me who meet with them, and they always bring me along, and I get to know those congressional aides. So that's a secret. You have to keep in the loop as the different generations come up on Capitol Hill. Lawmakers I've known over the years, so I can call them personally on the on the phone. So yeah, if I need to, and after I go out and give speeches, a number of senators will call me and say, what are farmers asking about? And I think that's a smart lawmaker.
Yeah. And you probably have to keep up with those aides because that's kind of a revolving door, right? And
it is.
These days, lawmakers are almost a revolving door in some cases.
Yeah, was a really good staffer will be leaving. I don't know whether he's left yet. Senator Thune's office, and he's going to work for Dow Chemical. And he introduced me to the incoming staffer. So yeah, you have to keep in the loop. So that's when I go downtown, and we have what we call either our power lunches or our power, dinners, and just to get them to know them on a personal basis. It's not asking many questions right away. You have to build up support, and of course, you give them twice as much as they give you because I'm in my give back phase. I'm a back alley for a lot of congressional aides. I said, hey, here's what's happened in the past, and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey, how many staffers that we currently have worked on a farm bill in the past?
That's a good question. I don't know, but
I've been told.
I bet not even half. Yeah, not even half. Yeah.
Do you think that is one reason that this farm bill process has been so slow, or are you just chalking it up to this is Washington right now?
This is Washington right now, and Congressional Budget Office has a new personnel, and let's just say they've been very slow, and that's the House Budget Committee Chairman, Jody Arrington, Republican from Texas, has entered the arena in a good way to try to speed up Congressional Budget Office, scoring. I have not seen that, I don't think, in any farm bill on a positive way. When budget usually enters, it's in a negative way for farmers. And it's just the differences between the political parties now. You can see it in the farm bill. The Senate is more food and nutrition and conservation and climate change oriented, where the House farm bill, led by Republicans, are more farmer centric. They always say they want to put the farm back in the farm bill. And I agree that their proposal does that. So we have a big ideological difference, and you don't usually see that in a farm bill.
Do you think that this is the debate we keep having, right? Before you get into the specifics of what's in the bill, are they going to be able to come together this year, or is it going to be lame duck after a presidential election that maybe we get something done?
That's a good thought. Don't ever rule out a lame duck, because we're going to see, we're going to see whether or not, and I'm an equal opportunity finger pointer, Republicans and Democrats. I don't think they're both answering the calls of mainstream America. With that notwithstanding, I think this bill before the elections is going to show whether the Democrats want an issue or a bill. If they want an issue, they'll vote to defeat the House Farm Bill. And we're going to know shortly after May the 23rd when they mark up the House Republican bill and they have a vote. And if you have a few Democrats, that would be a positive signal that, this is truly a bipartisan bill. If not, we can wait until the lame duck session of Congress after November 5th elections. The reason why I say farmers, lawmakers should really pass a bill this year. We have a fiscal cliff coming next year under two things. One is the debt limit bill. We're going to have a hike in the debt ceiling, and then the other one is later in the year. We have the 2017 Trump tax cuts expire after 2025, and we could be in an atmosphere of budget cutting rather than a budget neutral bill that we have right now in the farm bill debate.
I get what you're saying, Jim, but I mean, it just seems like every few months we're talking about trying to get a budget passed. We've heard about the cliff. I mean, my thing is, does anything really change after this election to force both sides of the aisle to come together and get a farm bill done? I mean, we asked this question of our economists in our Ag Economist Monthly Monitor, and no one, not a single one said 2024. The majority said either the first half of 2025 or the second half of 2025, but there were several who think it's going to be 2026, Jim, because their point was, after this election, what changes? You still have the same dynamics, the same fights. You're getting less accomplished, not more. What changes?
The changes would be the economy. And sometimes in my speeches currently, I say, I hope we're on the ground floor. So if you have to crawl out the window, it won't be that high. But we're going to next year to 18 months, chickens are going to come home to roost on the U.S. economy, the debt levels, the spending that we've had. And the bond market is going to be the signal. That's the only editor Washington has. So I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. We're going to have elements of stagflation. One of the best quotes I've heard in a while came last week, I think it was, from Fed Chairman Jerome J. Powell, when he was asked about whether or not we have stagflation, a weaker economy on top of high inflation. Mm-hmm. And he said he didn't see the stag or the flation. Well, he's been wrong of late, and I think he's going to be wrong. I think we will have stagflation next year. So what did I just say? We're going to have a declining U.S. economy. Unemployment is going to go up. We'll have demand considerations surface in the U.S., and interest rates will have to become crashing down at the latter part of 2025. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm looking at the numbers. The U.S. economy is beginning to cool off, and all this spending, primarily, not totally, primarily led the last few years by the White House, along with the Democrats, are going to come home to roost, and we're going to have to pay for it.
Hey, I know we, do a lot of prognosticating here. Washington is always a kind of a moving puzzle of things that we're trying to sort out. Talk to me about this presidential election. We just had another primary in Indiana. Nikki Haley got 22% of the vote here. She's not officially running. What does this presidential election look like as we get into the summer and we get into convention time? We've seen this unrest on campuses. I expect that to continue. What do you think?
Well, if you have the continuation of the unrest at the Democratic National Convention, that will not be good news for the Democrats, because increasingly I'm hearing from voters, they want to go back to normal as much as possible. Now, I don't think that's 100% possible, but they're tired of this stuff. And so law and order will prevail, much like it did in the 1968 elections when the Democrats had their comeuppance at that convention. But I'm befuddled somewhat on the presidential election. I personally think that former President Trump should be further ahead in the polls that he is right now with President Biden, assuming he will be the candidate, because of the problems that we've had in the country: an open border, sticky inflation. Yes, prices have come down, but they're still very high relative at the supermarket, and the most in 30 years for that consumers are paying in disposable income for food, and then the higher interest rates that are really not factored into inflation rates. A lot of people don't know that, and the White House wants to know why people don't feel good. That's why. So, but Biden now is pulling out all stops to keep his constituency, the tent people, people under the Democratic tent, throwing billions and billions to student loan withdrawals, forgiveness, and all sorts of stuff. But so he's desperate. Trump, on the other hand, is making some inroads with Black young Americans and Hispanics. So what I'm just saying is we're going to have another very, very close race in the 7 states that will make a difference. So it's hard to call right now. And what you said, Clinton, I think is spot on. Most Americans have really not focused on the race yet, but they will after July 4th parades, and definitely at convention time. Watch your polls then, because there'll be a better snapshot of what's truly going on.
Before we move on to our next segment, I'm going to ask the obvious question. can we trust these polls, Jim?
Frankly, I think they're weak because they're who answers the phone now? Do you answer the phone?
Well, I mean,
I never answer the phone. Never.
No, because it's a robocall. Somebody wanted me to renew my car warranty that I haven't had in years. So
Tyne,
no, I don't answer
that. You need to answer that call.
Yeah, I like qualitative ones that say they're based on cell phone ones, things like that. And my good friend David Wasserman of the Cook Political Report says, but he goes, his recent search of analysis, and he's a great analyst, has said that the polls are still okay. So I'm going to trust my friend on that one. That's why you go with a majority of polls, like the merging of 6 or 7 polls. That keeps it more honest. And all of them show extremely tight race for the president and in the House. Now the Senate, most prognosticators are saying the Republicans will regain control of the Senate. Whoever wins the president, I think, ups the odds that they'll win the House. So that's why the House is so important.
Interesting.
All right, let's go to our next segment, Talking Tea. Well, you've heard the term spilling the tea. That's exactly what we're doing here. Talking tea is our take on it. And that is all that Jim Wiesemeyer does, I feel like. So we're going to start off with this. You mentioned David. He has a great read. He does so many. I mean, he looks at so much analysis.
Yes.
He does a lot of polling. Who does he think is going to win the presidential election?
He sees the easiest call that he's had between the House, Senate, and President, he tells me recently, subject to change all the time, is Trump. He's forecasting a Trump win probably by more than people think. Well, if that's the case, then he's very close on the House. He sees the current House ratio before a number of them left. So he sees the Republicans retaining control of the House and winning the Senate, by the way, 52-48. Now, let's just assume he's correct on that. Again, it's early. This is just a snapshot in time now. The Republicans are coming out today, a number of them saying if they control White House, the triad, White House, House, and Senate, there'll be a budget reconciliation bill. And that's where you don't need 60 votes in the Senate. The key there for the ag audience is that's where you're going to see a push to extend the 2017 tax cuts. So that's one barometer that any ag sector audience should have dumble ears on if the Republicans win it all. You increase your odds significantly that most, if not all, of the expiring Trump tax cuts, they expire in 2025, will be extended. The other key on that is one of the biggest questions I'm asked over the last month or so is whether or not which political party wins, will that make a difference in extending some of these biofuel tax incentives, including the recent dud of a program, in my judgment, the Sustainable Aviation Fuel, 40B program. That's a murkier one to answer, because now if the Democrats win, you up your odds significantly that the biofuels incentives will be extended. If the Republicans win, and if we're into this tax cuts and they're worried about the debt, they're going to have to cut someplace. I want to hear specifically from President Trump, nobody else in his entourage, as far as whether or not he will extend the biofuel tax incentive. So we have a lot riding in the ag sector on this election across the board. And not saying I hope the Republicans win it all, but there's going to be implications either way. If the Democrats win it all, you're going to have regulations on steroid, you're going to have anti-fossil fuel on steroids, and you're going to have the continued focus in foreign policy on the underserved rather than production agriculture. That's not a political analysis. That's just fact.
Jim, we had during Trump's presidency, it was pretty mixed on people's feelings about how he handled the biofuel topic. I remember being at a commodity classic with Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue in the room, and it was a little contentious back and forth at that time. So I think your notes about what's going to happen with SAF, what's going to happen with the biofuels industry, will tax credits get extended? I think that's all valid conversation here. We talked a lot about tariffs when President Trump was in office. Those are still in place. We don't seem to be talking that much about them right now.
No.
We don't talk that much about trade right now. And we've continued to see South America erode a lot of our trade partners and our partnerships in Asia. And so I don't know. I think there's a couple of big issues that impact agriculture in this next election, not just Farm Bill, not just biofuels, but also trade.
Absolutely.
Market access.
Absolutely, because we're getting into a need for a demand increase, and you'll get it some domestically through the biofuels, but don't forget agriculture in the trade arena. Look at the meat sector. My goodness. Clayton Yiner, former USDA secretary, U.S. trade representative, a White House person, always said that a good trade policy is a difference between profit or loss in many meat sector years, and I think he's still correct. Both political parties, however, have turned protectionist, and that's not good for agriculture. So, and you have former President Trump just overtly saying he'll put on at least 60%, if not 100% tariffs on Chinese cars coming in from Mexico. He's going to put 60% tariffs on other exports from China. And then across the board, he wants to put a 10% tariffs on all shipments to the United States. If I was interviewing any Republican senator, I would ask that Republican senator, do you agree with Trump's position on this? And watch him squirm. Watch him squirm.
Clint, you put it nicely. You said our market share's kind of eroding when it comes to Brazil. Let's be honest. They are eating our lunch in every single aspect. I mean, Jim, tell me how it's a lower carbon intensity score to bring up sugarcane from Brazil for our SAF plant here in the U.S., that it's running on sugarcane from Brazil. That's a lower carbon intensity score than crops produced right here in the U.S. Like, it makes no sense to me. They have it figured out, and they are eating our lunch in every aspect.
Well, first on soybeans, they're the world's largest exporter now. Corn last year, and they'll continue on corn. Cotton now. And now, yes, it's just abysmal that their sugarcane industry is going to be the initial recipients of the SAF tax incentives, because they geared up. Look how long it took the U.S. government, the Treasury Department, the EPA, the Energy Department, and USDA to come together on the rules and regulations on sustainable aviation fuel and the GREET model reform. That ends in 2024 this year, and then it kicks into another program. So forget about the current program. Brazil is going to have our cake there too, and they're eating it, let me tell you. So yeah, and the rules and regulations, the record-keeping requirements of this GREET and SAF model is just horrendous, let alone some of the requirements that they put on corn and soybean producers, with the 3 requirements for corn and 2 for soybeans, where the vast majority of producers don't have a cover crop, and that's one stipulation. So one of the best quotes we had a week ago on this is our good friend Paul Neiffer, where he said, is this a dud for U.S. Soybean and corn farmers? And I've always learned to answer a question. Yes, it's a dud.
Yeah. Okay, I have some tea from this week. I want to get your take on it. Okay?
All right, let's hear it. Do it.
I know this is old news now, but NASA's decision to do away with those major reports. So the cattle inventory report coming up in June and some of the other reports, they are standing, from every level, from what I hear from chief economists down, they are standing by that decision, saying there's plenty of other data out there. There's plenty of other ways to find this information. We don't need these reports. And one of the economists said they believe that that's true. And I wonder if it's because there's not enough people actually in USDA anymore, in the office anymore, that are talking to each other to really understand the implications and what it means. That basically, you go into USDA right now and it's a ghost town. That's what I'm told. Jim, do you think that USDA is becoming a little, and NASS is becoming a little out of touch with some of the impacts from these decisions, just because simply after 2020, we don't have everyone back?
Yeah, I would say some agencies within USDA, but NASS, it's hard to defend myself, let alone a government agency. However, NASS, I will defend. They're statisticians. They want to do the best job. Okay, so why did they cut? Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack is correct in this regard that how long it took Congress to pass a budget bill, it waylaid NASS's survey capabilities. But we need that cattle inventory in July. Right at the time where we're so low on inventory, we need transparency in the numbers. Mm-hmm. And I, on AgriTalk, I asked Chip, I said, no other agency has had to cut their surveys, and I remember Chip saying at the time, well, it's how the USDA surveys are done in planning. But here's another one. I'll put the finger right back at Vilsack. You, Mr. Secretary, you have tapped the Commodity Credit Corporation for billions of dollars, some in the wonky area. Why you couldn't find millions of dollars to get transparency in ag stats that we really need? So I think it's an issue of priority above NASS. I don't blame NASS, but I blame higher level USDA officials, and I also blame Congress. There's enough bipartisan. They have slow walked this budget for too many years, and these have consequences, and we're feeling it. But we need data.
Jim, that time of year in July, I mean, that's right after calving season. And I understand, we probably only have calves once a year, plus a lot of people have moved to fall calving. But even then, like twice a year doesn't seem overkill. We've got a quarterly hogs and pigs report. Yeah. Like other livestock sectors get a report all the time. Yeah. I'm just surprised that one has been. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they've done it before, and they got money from the industry and then a couple of other areas. But here's another one that they cut that I had no idea of the significance until I started getting calls and emails. Mike Seifert from the National Grain and Feed Association, their CEO, good friend of mine, he called me up and he said, you don't know how many members I have that use those county estimates for an individual supply and demand in their area, like elevators. It's almost like their mini supply and demand of where they can go for grains and their need to for inventory purposes. And that is a very important element as well. And they cut those county estimates. So it really hurts at the core.
Yeah, interesting.
That leads us to our next segment. What the Sigma? Jim, do you know what the Sigma means?
What the hell?
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. We're going to bring in Zach anyway. Zach Zingula, our producer. Zach does not want to join us, but he is, and I'm going to wait until he joins us. You don't have a choice, Zach.
Well, okay.
Hello. Okay, so what the Sigma, kind of a Gen Z term. Out of all four of us, you're the most Gen Z here.
Maybe Gen Alpha. It may even be younger than that. We may have to go another level.
Zach, you've searched the TikToks. What does it mean?
Well, I think you searched the TikToks and shared these definitions with us. I thought it was like the alpha male of the group. Is it?
No, that's Jim.
Okay.
If my female cat was here, she's alpha too. I live in her house, by the way.
That's funny. No, I think that's where it started, was alpha.
Yeah, it started there, and then it's a hot topic. Like, it always expands on stuff, right? Like,
cascaded.
These kids start somewhere, then the next week it grows and grows and grows.
These kids, Zach, you're not too far from it. Okay, so what the Sigma, that's our segment. I appreciate it, Zach. Thank you for that definition.
Anytime.
You will see Zach much more. We like to pick on him. He likes to pick on us. He's not the victim. I just want to make sure that is known in this relationship. Okay, so what the Sigma? Jim, you nailed it. What the heck? And I think some of those things that you were just talking about when it comes to some of those reports, there were a lot of farmers like, what the heck? But what is the craziest headline that you've read or you've written this week? And Jim, you read and write a lot of headlines.
There's several. I mentioned last week it was that dud by Paul Neiffer. Earlier this week, relative to the Farm Bill, before the World Trade Organization, we called it GATT, General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade. At the moniker at the time was General Agreements to Talk and Talk. And that's what I labeled the current Farm Bill environment. All they're doing is talking. So I said Farm Bill is another word for GATT, So that was one. Another one, I begin my speeches with one word, bewildering. And I tell the audience, and almost word for word, what in the hell is going on in the U.S. and the world? I see a lot of heads, going like this. And I said, if you're not confused of what's going on in this country and the world, you're an alien. Because if you're concerned, you're correct. If you're bewildered, you're correct. We're into this Middle Ages of our country right now, and it just we need to settle the sinking ship.
Interesting. I'm going to go with my what the Sigma for the week, and it was one I just saw today, and it's about RFK Jr. says that a parasite or worm ate part of his brain and then died inside his head. Jim, did you see this?
No, I did not see that.
It's just out today. He was talking about he was having some MRIs done. They thought maybe he had some sort of brain cancer or something going on. And they did some more studies, and they found a parasite had died inside his head at one point. So it's just interesting. We have a presidential candidate here who's trying to fight his way into multiple battleground states. I guess, Jim, my question for you as a guy in Washington, how much impact does he have overall in this whole conversation about the race for president?
He has more impact than most people think. On the Democrat side, even though the Kennedy family outside of him are mostly against him, by the way, the Kennedy name draws attention. That's point one. So the Democrats are really worried, including our current President Biden. Trump has said that he thinks that he's more wonky and it'll hurt Biden more than him. But some of the current polls show that it would take more from Trump, actually, than Biden. I think he'll get some people who probably wouldn't vote for either candidate in. So on the surface, in those 7 states that I mentioned that will decide the presidency, he could make a difference. He doesn't have to win a state, but he can be a noise. He can be an outlier on some of these. And I don't know. I would want to know. I don't think it was a parasite that makes his voice like that, because I've heard other Kennedys speak like that. So it must be genetic in the family. I need to research that.
Yeah.
Speaking of what the Sigma headlines with presidential candidates and possible running mates, there have been quite a few with Kristi Noem lately. Quite a few that just have left people puzzled. But who do you, and they all of them say, this could be Trump's running mate. Who do you think?
Well, number one, a running mate. There's only been one in my lifetime that actually helped a president become president. That was Lyndon Johnson, who helped President Kennedy. They can usually hurt you or be neutral. Okay. In the case of Trump, I want to hear it from him, not if his handler. If I had to guess, it would be one of 2. Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, who Trump really likes. And that would bring in some other voters, I think, or Burgum, the governor of North Dakota, who he and his wife spent Easter weekend down at Mar-a-Lago. That would be good for agriculture, because Burgum, he was kind of the most intelligent one I heard in the Republican primary. I mean, once I heard him talk, I said, wow, he's really North Dakota. He's smart, articulate, to the point. So
Jim,
those would be my two.
I was at a conference in Fargo a couple of years ago, and Governor Burgum was there and spoke about some of the importance of IT education and being on the cutting edge of technology, and how he's trying to make North Dakota a hub for that.
Yes,
really sharp, really well spoken, held the room, and was really well liked by the crowd there. So no, when I saw he was running and I saw him on stage, it was interesting.
Both of those individuals have lived the American dream and started not wealthy. Okay. And I applaud that. And they push the power of work for self-esteem. And I think we've lost that in a number of areas in this country. So I think both of those individuals, and there are others, but Kristi Noem had an early following, but her latest book, as you know, in this town, you don't kill a 14-month-old dog. You just don't do it. She must not have seen Old Yeller movie. You just don't do that. But she would be good for agriculture, because there would be a cattle person for vice president. And if you know cattle, you know feed, right? You know feed grains.
Right.
So I would applaud if she was the candidate myself, because we would have an Aggie, a true understandable Aggie. But Burgum has just the smarts, the proven record of governorship. And as you said, Clinton, he lived the dream and was very successful, and he knows what buttons to push. And if something would happen, if President Trump is the presidency through health or other reasons, I would have great esteem for him coming into the job. And that's what you have to look for.
So no Nikki Haley, no Ron DeSantis?
Nikki Haley, I just don't see it. Ron DeSantis, you can't have a president or vice president from the same state.
Okay.
So, and I don't see DeSantis moving. And would you move from Mar-a-Lago? I don't think so.
No.
So no, I think DeSantis is good where he's at. And there are other candidates could come out. We could, that's why I never say for sure, because you can look really stupid on picking a candidate. But Aggie would be comfortable with either Burgum or Tim Scott. Tim Scott is an up and comer. Once you're one-on-one with him, he just shines. You talk about an uplifter. I mean, he is positive to the core.
That's great.
All right, my What the Sigma headline real quick is about solar leasing rates. And so, Jim, this is something that you and I had talked about back in, December.
Yeah, we were early. Well, we were at the Missouri governor's
conference on
over a year ago.
November. Yeah, I was trying to think of when that was. Anyway, at the Ag Economy Barometer, Purdue CME Group, they've started asking in the monthly barometer, how many of you have been approached by a company for solar leasing? And if you've been approached, what were those rates? And, I think it was 18% maybe had been approached, 18, 19% or something like that. So that's how many had been approached. But these rates, Jim, over half say that the rates are $1,000 or more.
Yeah.
$1,250 or $1,250. There was a lot in that category, and even $1,500. There were quite a few in that category. I wrote a story on $600 cash rents, and farmers lost their mind. I understand why, because then it got people talking. I completely get it. But if you're losing your mind over $600 cash rent, what about $1,500 for solar leasing? And you look at the straight economics right now, Jim, you've said it before, the pie's being passed.
Take a piece.
So take a
piece.
Take a piece. You said that. But where's this money coming from, Jim? $1,500 per acre. It is mind-blowing.
Inflation Reduction Act, tax incentives for biofuel programs, a portion of that. I've heard some farmers have told me $2,500 to $3,000 an acre.
Oh my God!
You have to look at parts of Ohio, and wherever I go, that's the beauty that we all give speeches in this great country, and that's why I live to go out to listen to farmers and ranchers, because over the last 2 years, I saw the development of this. In the Blacklands of North Carolina, the significant number of solar panels that I saw, and they showed me, they took me around the area. Outside of Cincinnati and other portions of Ohio really has taken off on this. And then when we were down in Missouri, Tyne, we heard of the sensitivity of that from the pork producers, that they saw a lot of ground going in. Here's the dilemma. There's pros and cons. I never want to tell a landowner what they can do with their ground. However, some of these acres are on very productive soil. And so you're seeing some really good farmland. It's almost like the days when I was growing up, where I had a farm field in our backyard when we moved back into town, and they built a subdivision on very good black earth soil. We're into that, but this is a sensitive issue amongst farm families, because some of them want that high per acre, but other ones want to produce. They're your typical farmer. They love to see a crop growing. The concerns I'm hearing from some producers is when they read the small print on the contract, they don't get the total payment until the entire project is completed. So be aware of that. Second one is there's concerns as if that underlying company goes out of business, who continues to pay for this after they've installed all this stuff. By the way, the majority of solar panels come from China, by the way. And then some of the ground is on a hilly ground. So in order to make it flat for the solar panels, they've had to contour it. That has led to some flooding downstream. So that's created some legal issues. So this is a growing issue, I'm telling you. But we were early, Tyne, in picking this up, I think a couple years ago, but it's building in farm country. And I'm not going to tell a farmer he shouldn't do it, but read the contracts and how viable is that company doing it. But it's a sensitive issue.
It's just hard to say at those price levels. It's just really hard for a lot of farm families to say no.
Why would you?
I mean, you start doing the math on that.
It's just
a few hundred acres at $1,500 an acre for 25 years. The math is real hard to farm on top of that.
Yeah, some of them are that long. Some of them are 10, 15, 20,
Sure.
25 years. And I know it was Duke Energy down in North Carolina. I haven't checked in on the Ohio, but it's usually these big energy companies that are doing it. But you're seeing more solar panels even as heating and cooling and the heating in farm country. I'm seeing them where I go on the beautiful old farmhouses. My good friend Roger Bernard used to work at Pro Farmer, is installing a big solar panel in his operation with his barn and other aspects. It wasn't cheap, cost him, I think, $30,000. So you're seeing not only from getting paid to have solar panels, but using it to eventually settle down your heating bills. It's not going away as long as you have tax incentives. Now, if those tax incentives go away, I'm telling you, just like sustainable aviation fuel, you tell me how that pencils out without the tax incentives. It doesn't.
No, and Jim, some of these farmers are getting paid even if the solar panels aren't up yet. They're putting a crop in this year, also getting paid by these solar companies. I mean, I'm a journalist. I'm not good at math, and I can see the money on the wall. Like, why would you not take it? And actually,
yes, and they're raising them up in order to have sheep in many cases graze, and that also gives them, like in the case of Nebraska, I think it gets them that special ag tax exemption.
Yep.
So there's tax angles to this as well.
For sure.
Just so you know, I say that I'm bad at math, but I just tell James, my husband, that so that when he asks why I went over budget, I'm like, well, I'm bad at math. So I'm really not that bad.
You want to have a person who's bad at math, even with a calculator. I screw it up. I pressed the wrong button. So no, that's why I call my good friend Bart Fisher, the ag economist at Texas A&M, all the time. He said, Bart, I need a table for this. And Bart is so good that he flips it out within. He's like the AI of agriculture.
It's a gift.
It's an artificial intelligence of agriculture. Now, don't tell Dr. Joe Outlaw I said that, because he'll call me and complain.
I'm sending him this podcast. Anyway.
All right. Hey, let's do our next segment. TMI, can't believe this happened.
All right.
So
you want to start?
No, you start.
Okay.
In this segment, what is it
this.
that you can't believe this happened?
Okay, they say kids say the funniest things, right? And they also have no concept of money. So we bought our first farm this year. It's not big, but we bought our first farm. Big deal. Well, I get a text from the teacher, my youngest, Kimbrel, who, by the way, is the reason I have gray hairs. I mean, she's the youngest. She looks like James, acts like me. I don't think I'm going to survive her teenage years. Like, I've come to terms with this already. So I get a text from her teacher, and apparently this is what Kimbrel said. My mom bought this land for like $100,000. We're not rich. We borrowed it from the bank. We're planting sweet corn so no one blocks our view. And the teacher said, I died. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she goes, and then I said, Kimbrel, I don't think your mom wants you to share that information. Where she got that price, no idea. Where she got that we're going to plant sweet corn to block our view. We live on a hill. I was in the flood of 2019 when we bought a house. We bought it on the hill. Like, I am, this blonde is not real. It's faux. I knew better. We live on a hill. Anyway, so apparently, but she made sure to say, we're not rich. We borrowed it from the bank. Oh my gosh.
Kids are awesome.
Oh my gosh.
Kids are awesome. They will do their best to tell the truth no matter what.
I'm glad that these teachers know us, because otherwise, I think they would think we're crazy. I mean, honestly, by the stuff that Kimbrel tells her, I'm just thankful that there's only a class of 20, K through 12. I mean, we're in a town of 800. And so they know us well. I think in a big town, teachers would think that we are crazy. And maybe they still think.
She's going to be a creative writer.
That's right. That's right. So I'm not going to name names, because my wife would probably kill me if she knew I told this story, but I'm going to tell it. When she was at one Thanksgiving, so she's from Oklahoma, I'm not going to say where. Her grandparents had a big ranch there, so they always got together for Thanksgiving. Her mom was one of 15 kids, right? 15 kids, Irish Catholic family there, raised a ranch. So 50 or 60 cousins, like huge family. So one year Thanksgiving, helicopters and the ATF drop into the middle of it and start trying to take granddad away and arrest him. Well, it turns out somebody had been growing ditchweed on the back 40, and and so there were all these questions. Well, get to school on Monday, and Mary Beth's cousin writes this story to the teacher about how my grandfather was arrested for growing drugs and all this stuff. So the teacher has to call them, like, is this true? What's going on? And so it was a long explanation. Anyway, they got it all sorted out. Nobody was arrested. It wasn't that big a deal. But for little kids, that was like a crazy story. And it goes right back to like telling the teacher stuff that happened without any context.
That's the most Oklahoma story I've ever heard.
Right?
And I thought I had trouble with my cat.
See,
my TMI is just what I hear from DC on certain programs, like the student loan forgiveness. I just said, excuse me, come again. They're forgiving how much money? The accumulation. Not that I'm bitter, but I had to pay for my college.
Oh, I'm bitter. I'm bitter.
And then second one is when I first heard of how they were going to operate the worst USDA program implementation, the ERP, the Emergency Relief Program, of the latest version. The first few versions were far more farmer friendly, but its wonkiness comes to USDA programs. And this is a sensitive area, because here's a theme that I've not written about. I only mentioned it briefly on AgriTalk, I think a few weeks ago, and Chip didn't pick up on it. And this will guarantee to get cabinet people in the Obama administration, Biden, that's a secret there. one of the same, upset. But a number of productive production agriculture people, the real people in agriculture, producers, livestock and growers, are starting to give me the theory that, isn't a combination of these onerous, unfunded mandates, regulations, to the way USDA is operating farm programs, 3, this inability to get out EPA decisions on the biofuel programs, E15, RFS, SAF, is that not leading to higher food inflation? Now that's interesting. When I combined all them, maybe we would have more acres grown, more profit to spread along more acres. Maybe we would have higher prices if they truly focused on farm income at the producer level, true production level. It would take surveys and that, but I think that's why grassroots, I always listen to the best farmers I know, and they're beginning to tell me that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Fascinating topic.
Well, we did kind of get personal, but let's go to our next segment, our final segment, My Fantastic Life. This is where we get personal. And Jim, I think about all the time, I don't know how you've survived in Washington, D.C. for all these years. Like, I don't know if you get enough credit for that. Kudos to you.
I go to Midwest to my family who are in the Illinois, Missouri area. And a case in point, it goes right into your segment. Today, May the 8th, is the date that my 1 year older than me sister passed away at only 58. But yet Friday is I'm going to a wedding of her sister, Ashlyn. And it just, that says it all right there. You lose somebody that was, I described as a combination between Bette Midler and Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, it was me on steroids, okay? And she was a loss. And every May the 8th, I think of her. But now 2 days later, I get to experience a very great couple with Ashlyn and her beau, Benji, from Springfield, Illinois, Missouri. Anyway, so, and then of course our famous, if you're Catholic, you play cards.
Yeah.
So Sunday night, we already have a big card game. And can you imagine a whole family like me?
No, I was just thinking, I can't imagine how much alcohol is going to be because
it'll just go. Yeah, well, I have to travel Monday to Fast Market to speech, so I'll have to, and my doctor said I have to cut down. So you'll never see it thin me. But I'm going to thin down. But family is a dean. That's how I survive this town. And also the farmer meetings of all the crop. I want to give a shout out. The crop insurance agents are like, to me, my second family over the years now. I do individual meetings for individual crop insurance agents. I give them a family rate because I'm a good person, but they take me around to their operations and you learn what the new stuff going on. So it's the personal side of your life. Yeah.
What's the Jimmy Dubs card game gonna be? What game do you play? Is it Spades?
Oh, they play Liar's Poker.
Liar's Poker.
I don't even know what that is.
Look it up. That's
right.
I like to play traditional pinochle and games, but Liar's Poker, and it is a fun game.
Okay.
I mean, is it every poker game you're lying? So I don't know what
you don't know if you're lying or not. And see, I'm so conservative when I play cards. They know that if I stay in, I have a very good hand. So then they all get out.
Yeah.
that up.
My nephews and nieces play, and they're very good liars. Very good liars.
Well, I'm a terrible liar. I just have a terrible poker face, which is why I don't play a lot of cards, because I'm not good at it.
Well, you count the eats as winnings. So that's why I eat a lot at their house. I count eats as winnings.
There you go. That's right.
Clinton, what's yours?
Well, so this week my wife had her birthday on Seso de Mayo, which is what I always call it. And my kids, of course, so nice. You're how old? Which is never good. 27 is usually the answer. again.
Age is just a number. It's just a number.
It's just a number. But this year, we had 2 baseball games, and my daughter was at a track meet, and so I couldn't even go out to dinner as a family and take her to dinner for her birthday. So we celebrated separately in 2 different locations. But you know what? That's kind of the part of life that we're in right now. We've got my oldest is playing JV baseball. My youngest is playing 12U baseball, and I'm helping coach. And then my daughter, she's doing volleyball and track. And so it's just every day is like, okay, what do we have today? And we take about 10 minutes to sort it out, who's going where and why. And then we've got to figure out if we've got all the uniforms washed. And
Do you eat at the same table each day?
We try many nights as we can to sit down at least for 10, 15 minutes and try to grab something to eat together. But, a lot of nights it's just different parts and homework and, it is what it is. But I wouldn't change it for the world. It's just so happy birthday to Mary Beth.
A couple of weeks ago, we went to Texas. So we are just, when you go in certain phases where you get a lot of wedding invites. And so we hadn't had many in a while. And then I don't know how many we've had this year, 5. I mean, just in the last few months. Well, I'm under the impression of you don't have to attend every wedding. Apparently, James is not on the same page as me. It doesn't matter if this wedding is in Africa, Texas, or Missouri, he's going. And so I do what any good wife should do. And I'm like, that's fine. You can go, but I'm not going with you. So he's literally been traveling to Texas every couple of weeks. Well, one of them was his cousins. And so the girls, we decided, to that one we would go. We went to Austin. And I thought that there would be a Buc-ee's gas station on every corner. I haven't been down to Austin much, but you think about Buc-ee's, you think of Texas. I mean, you think they're everywhere. So I look it up, and I said, girls, we'll try to find a Buc-ee's so we can experience it, because there's one in southern Missouri, and one of their friends got to go. And they were like, okay, yep, let's do it. Our heart was set on it. So I look it up, and it's 45 minutes out of the way.
Oh my gosh.
But that's a Texas thing to do. Travel 45 minutes out of the way to hit up a gas station. So it's what we did. And we went to Buc-ee's, and let me tell you, I am impressed. We got jewelry, we got clothes, we got food. What else did we get? I can't tell you how many other things. I mean, it was a one-stop, and the girls got stuff, but it was a one-stop shop, and I am thoroughly impressed by Buc-ee's. So, Jim, if you drive by a Buc-ee's, you have to stop.
I will. I don't think I've ever been. I go to Texas a lot. I was just there last week.
I don't think I've been either.
I will request that, by the way.
I'm telling you, the girls, their favorite earrings now came from Buc-ee's. I mean,
where are we in society that the gas station is a destination? You know what I mean? Like, I've always enjoyed a good quick trip. I always like a Love's if you're traveling. There's so many good ones out there. Oklahoma's big for the come and go, but a Buc-ee's I've never been to.
I go for the best bread pudding.
At a gas station?
Oh, some of them have the diners on it. However, Iowa and Minnesota have the best bread pudding, but you live in Kansas City, right, Tyne?
Well, outside, but yes.
The Majestic restaurant, my favorite steak place in Kansas City.
Jim.
They have the best bread pudding. Even beats Iowa and Minnesota.
Maybe I'm gonna make you. Listen. I thought it was going to be the best. We went a few weeks ago.
Jim, you didn't like it?
It was awful. The steak was so. It's almost like now with beef prices, they've cut down on the quality, but they still charge the same.
Majestic?
For 6 of us to eat, it was $1,200, and I could have got a better steak at our local cafe. I was so upset because I was so looking forward to it. Now the prime rib was good, but I had a strip. I'm a New York strip or Kansas City strip girl, so I had a Kansas City strip, and my friend next to me had a ribeye. It was about this thin, and she couldn't even cut through. At first, I said, "Is there something wrong with our knives?" It wouldn't even cut the steak, Jim. It was so tough.
Well, that's not good.
I know. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Twice in a row, and it was really good steak.
Well, next time you're in town, let's go to the Gold.
You don't get this way for nothing.
Listen, Jim, my travels, if you ask me, how did you enjoy such and such town? It's solely based on food. How good was the food? I mean, that is.
Totally.
But next
you
time
didn't have their bread pudding?
No, I think I had the cream brulee.
Oh, Their bread pudding.
Well, now I know. I'll go for bread pudding. I'll go for dessert and coffee. That's not a problem.
Yes.
Okay, but long story short about the gas station, Buc-ee's is not a gas station, Clinton. It is an experience. Okay.
It's a destination.
It's not a gas station. It's an experience.
I will request that my next Texas trip. But I'd be taking to
By your private driver.
Buc-ee's? Is it Buc-ee's?
Yeah.
Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's.
Okay.
B-U-C
K-E-Y.
hyphen. No. That's not it. Okay. All
Zach
right.
doesn't even know what you're singing. That's how young Zach
Zach,
is.
were you alive when the Mickey Mouse Club was out?
Which version? My version or the
Was your version black
Jason
and white?
Timberlake version?
Was your version black and white?
Oh, that's cutting to the core.
Come on, that hurts, Tyne. That hurts.
Chip's not on here, so I got to have a dig at you. All right. We're out of time.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you for joining us for Unscripted. I knew
It truly was unscripted.
It was totally unscripted, Jim.
Yeah.
Any
But
conversation.
you know
with you.
the key, of course, to making anything work is we like each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you
so
for being here.
that brings it across. That brings it across. And you two are very good reporters. I tell people all the time,
Well, it's
That
a
means
lot
a
of
lot.
fun.
That means a lot coming from you, for
You are.
sure.
Absolutely.
You are.
The OG of ag reporting is what I
Give
call
me
him.
dubs with the
You know-
endorsement. I'll take it.
Jim, do you know what OG means?
Chip always says that, and Davis says that. What's OG mean?
He doesn't know. Original gangster. Like, you were the one that started.
You see, translation. You got to translate. Davis always says that, and the OG. And I said, well, I don't know what it means. I should have looked it up.
Original
It could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Oh, it could be worse. We're bringing you on
Always
just to
be
get you up on the lingo. I'm gonna have to send you some links and get you up to date. All right, for Jim Wiesemeyer and Clinton Griffiths, I'm Tyne
Anytime.
Morgan. Thanks for joining
have a
us
great
for
one, guys.
Unscripted.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. You can dive into more of Unscripted on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it anywhere podcasts are found. I'm Clinton Griffiths.
And I'm Tyne Morgan. From all of us here at Farm Journal, keep it real as you live your life unscripted.
Unscripted is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.